So in your PMP exam, you will often be stuck between two very close answer choices. And believe it or not, your success in the PMP exam will depend on how efficiently you can eliminate the wrong one and select the right one from these two very close answer choices. Let's learn how to do that in this video. Right, so let's get into it. Now, in your PMP exam, you will definitely experience this, okay? Typically, out of the 4 answer choices presented to you as a part of the question, you will comfortably be able to eliminate 2 of them, okay? Quite easily, provided you have prepared well for the exam. However, many a times you will always be stuck between the remaining 2 answer choices. Now, the funny part is both of them will have the potential to be the right answer choice, with pros and cons for both of them. So how do you really arrive at the correct answer choice? Assuming that you really do not want to toss a coin and select one of the answer choices, right? And this is where having a strategy becomes important, okay? Because let's accept it, just because you have studied the theory well for the PMP exam does not necessarily mean that you will be able to decide on the correct answer choice between 2 very close answer choices for your PMP exam. Now, if you have been writing PMP exam mocks, you would have experienced this yourself as well. So the way we will be structuring this video is like this, okay? We will discuss 3 strategies, each of which is absolutely critical for you to understand to help you analyze these very close answer choices, and then how to eliminate the wrong one and to arrive at the right one, and to do it fast, because that's what will matter, okay? Considering you have only 1 minute and 17 seconds precisely to solve a question in your PMP exam. So let's get started with the first strategy. Right, so strategy number 1, guys, which is to pay attention to superlatives, okay? Now, what do we mean by this? Now, see, when you are writing your PMP exam and you are getting the questions as part of the scenario, okay, and what you need to do when you are evaluating the answer options as part of the scenario, you need to pay attention to these kind of superlatives that might be part of your wrong answer choices, okay? So the superlatives could be something like should, something like must, all, or let's say none, strictly, mandatorily, everybody, nobody, okay? So if you see, these kind of superlatives are very, very polarizing, right? So it pushes the sort of pragmaticness of the answer option in a very negative or in a very positive direction. And this is what you should be sort of aware of, okay, when you are evaluating answer options. So always be on the lookout for these kind of superlatives, which might be sort of put very tactically in your wrong answer option choice, okay? And we'll practice an example in a second, and you will exactly see how this sort of having an eye to identify these superlatives as part of the wrong answer choice will be one of your key skills to differentiate the correct answer from the wrong answer when you are at that crossroads where you have like 2 answer options and you are not able to decide which one is correct and which one is incorrect, okay? So let's solve this question together, guys. Please pause the video and try to solve the question before we do this together. Okay, so let's see how the learning of superlatives apply in this question, okay? So what the question is saying, that in a sprint retrospective meeting, development team members raise concerns that defects are increasing due to what appears to be excessive workload pressure, okay? Due to what appears to be, okay? So it is not clear that whether actually that is the root cause or not, right? So that is very, very critical for you to understand. So how should the project manager respond to this? So let's look at the answer options one by one. Option A, consider implementing a Kanban board for reviews, okay? So this is absolutely incorrect, because Kanban boards are basically schedule tracking boards, and these are generally used for reviews anyways as part of agile projects, but this doesn't give the clarity that okay, why Kanban boards are especially important for this scenario, right? It is
sort of a very generic statement. So that is why this is incorrect. Let's look at answer option B. Mandate that development team members adopt strict time boxing or spikes. Okay, now this can be a good option. Okay, so generally you can do time boxing or you can do spikes and understand, okay, what is the root cause and things like that. So you can definitely do it. So that is one of your close answer choices, guys. Okay, so let's move forward and look at answer option C and answer option D. Option C, substitute the less productive team members. Okay, this is outrightly incorrect because, of course, I hope all of you are aware that you can't sort of go ahead and replace your team members just straight off the bat. Okay, let's look at answer option D. Investigate to identify whether this relates to scheduling or quality control issues. So basically it is asking that, okay, so you need to do a bit of a root causing to identify whether scheduling is the problem or quality control is the problem, that okay, there is a lot of rework that has been generating, okay, and that is what is causing that excessive workload, and there is a concern that has been raised. So basically again, root causing or trying to identify the right kind of reason for a challenge that you are trying to solve. Okay, so answer option D is also a very close answer choice. Now look, the thing is, here you are stuck between answer option B and answer option D. Now, of course, you can do a lot of analysis and back and forth and sort of analysis paralysis, let's say, okay, and you will be stuck. Okay. However, going by our learning of this superlatives, let's look if we are able to identify any superlatives in answer option B and answer option D. And now if you see that answer option B has two very strong superlatives that says mandate and says strict. Okay, now look guys, in project management, nothing is a mandate or a rule, right? Everything is a guideline. So you are not breaking a law even if you are not, let's say, preparing a project charter. A lot of projects happen without a charter as well. Okay, now that's a guideline to prepare a project charter, but that's not the law. Okay, so nothing is a mandate and nothing is a strict rule in project management. Okay, everything is a guideline. So the moment you see those two superlatives in answer option B, your alarm bells in your mind should start ringing. Okay, that okay, this is something which is a red flag, and that is why answer option B is incorrect, because it is trying to polarize the use of time boxing or spikes, saying that it's a mandate and you can't even do anything else and you have to do time boxing or spikes, and it's also is talking about having strict time boxing or spikes. Okay, so you are not running a school, right? What do you mean by strict time boxing or spikes? So that is why answer option B is incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is answer option D, which is to investigate and identify whether this relates to scheduling or quality control issues. Now overall, if you think in terms of agile perspective as well, time boxing or spikes are generally done once you have identified that yes, this is indeed a scheduling issue. Okay, then you can do time boxing to sort of take care of the scheduling issue. Okay, indeed there are some problems with quality which we are not able to manage, and then you can launch some spikes and see that okay, how you can manage those kind of stuff. But until and unless you arrive at that juncture where you are definite that it is definitely a scheduling issue or a quality control issue, you really can't do a time boxing or spikes, right? You can't launch both at the same time. Okay, that is the logical rationale behind why answer option B is incorrect and why D is correct. However, going by this strategy, what we have learned, you can easily point towards answer option B and find that those two strong superlatives of mandate and strict are red flags, and that makes answer option B an incorrect answer choice. And even if you were stuck between B and D, now you can exactly say that answer option D is the correct answer choice to this question, and that's how you use this strategy to eliminate and come to the right answer choice between two very close answer choices.
I hope you are liking the video, guys. If you do, please press the like button. It will mean a lot to me. Also, in my PMP Exam 35 PDU masterclass on Udemy, I teach you more than 10 of these strategies which will help you to identify the correct answer between two very close answer choices. So essentially, by learning 3 of them as part of this video, we are just scratching the surface. Hence, make sure you check out my 35 PDU PMP Exam Masterclass on Udemy if you are preparing for the PMP exam. And now let's move on to the second strategy.
Right, so strategy number 2, guys, okay, and that is violating the finish to start relationship for the 5 project phases. Okay, so what do we mean by that? See, if you go to your process group practice guide, you will be able to see that the table on page 22 actually calls this out, right? So there is this initiating process group, and there is this planning, and then executing, monitoring and controlling, and then the closing process group. Okay, and you have those 49 processes as part of each of your process groups. Now, the key thing you need to remember here is all this have a sort of finish to start relationship. Okay, so you have to have initiation first, and when your project charter, let's say, gets signed off, the project moves from initiation to planning. Okay, not before that. Similarly, once you have done all your planning activities, then only as per PMPwithRay you can move on to execution. Now, at least when you have started the execution, you can start monitoring and controlling. Okay, so basically these two can start parallelly, but at least execution have to start a bit before you can go and monitor and control, right? Because if there is no execution, what will you monitor and control, right? And then once the execution is complete, you move on to close out. Okay, so this finish to start relationship is quite important, because sometimes the PMP exam can try to trick you in terms of giving you some activity which is execution or which is planning, but the project itself is in initiation. Okay, so for example, let's say it might say that the project is in initiation, and we are creating the risk register. Okay, and that is immediately a red flag, because risk register is not created in the initiation stage. Okay, it is created in the planning stage of the project. So basically in initiation there is no risk register. Okay, so what would you do by reviewing a risk register in the initiation phase, right? So we'll learn this concept even more through an example. So let's try to solve this question first, and then we will try to see how strategy 2 applies in this question, which is a sample question for strategy 2. So please pause the video here and try to solve the question first. Right, so let's get started. A project manager is handed over the following documentation for an upcoming initiative: agreements, business case, OPAs, and EEFs. Okay, and I hope you are aware that what OPAs and EEFs mean. Okay, so OPAs are organizational process assets, and EEFs are enterprise environmental factors. So after receiving this information, what should the project manager do first? Okay, so that is the most critical thing that the question is asking. Now, look, this is where the ITTO, or the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs of your process group practice guide, because it becomes important. Okay, because if you go to the initiate project charter process of the process group practice guide, and if you look at the ITTO chart of that actual task, you will be able to see that the inputs have business documents, it has agreements, it has enterprise environmental factors, and it has organizational process assets. Okay, and what tools and techniques is it utilizing to generate the outputs, which is a project charter and assumption log? It is expert judgment, data gathering, which is brainstorming, focus groups, interpersonal skills, meetings, etc., etc. Okay, so definitely as part of the scenario that we see in the question, the project is in initiation, right? So there is no denying of the fact. Now, with that context being set, let's look at the answer options one by one. Option A, examine and comprehend the business justification and project objectives. This is really a good option, because if you go to the tools and techniques of initiate project charter, you will be able to see that you do sort of group discussions, focus brainstorming, etc., to comprehend the business justification after you have got the inputs of your project chartering process, which are your agreements, business case, OPAs, etc. Okay, so option A seems to be a good answer choice. Let's look at option B. Assemble the project team and allocate project responsibilities. This is incorrect, right? And the key reason why this is incorrect is because where do you think team charter gets created? Okay, it gets created in the planning stage when you are planning your project team. Okay, so that is why this is a classic example where this overall finish to start relationship gets violated, and you are trying to do something which is in planning in initiation, which is incorrect, right? So that is why option B is incorrect. Let's look at option C. Develop the project timeline and identify the critical path. Again, a planning activity which is schedule management, or planning your schedule, or developing project schedule, that is done in the planning stage, but the project is in the initiation stage, right? We have already established that. So that is why option B and option C are very close answer choices, but they are incorrect because of this finish to start relationship between the 5 project phases as we have learned. Let's look at option D. Confirm the project charter authorization is secured from the sponsor. And this is again a very classic example. And perhaps option A and option D, both of these options are very close. Okay, because option A is the tools and techniques part of your overall ITTO chart for your develop project charter, and option D is your output part of your develop project charter. Now for a second, if I go back to that actual chart, you will be able to see that once you have got your inputs, you first have to apply the tools and techniques, right? Because if you have not applied the tools and techniques, you will not be able to get the output, right? Which is the project charter. So first you have to have a project charter to get it signed, right? Now, if you go back to the question with this kind of an context, you will be able to easily rule out option D, because since the question is asking that what should the project manager do first after they have received the inputs, of course, you first have to focus on the tools and techniques, okay, which is to examine, comprehend the business justification and the project objectives, because those are your tools and techniques to write the project charter, okay. So this is a very strong finish to start relationship, guys, and I hope you are able to understand and appreciate the nuance of this question, and you will be tested on this nuance multiple times in your PMP exam. So please make sure you understand this concept, okay. And this is exactly the reason why option D also becomes an incorrect answer choice, because it is directly jumping from the input to the output, okay, and it is not taking into consideration the tools and techniques part, okay. And that is why the correct answer to this question is option A. All the options, which are option B, option C and option D, are very close answer choices, but because it A defies the initial finish to start relationship of the 5 phases of a project, and B defies the finish to start relationship of input, tools and techniques and outputs as well, okay, as we have learned, that is why all the options B, C and D are incorrect, okay. And as per strategy number 2, as we have learned as part of this question, option A is the correct answer choice to this question.
Finally, the third strategy to help you eliminate between 2 close answer choices in your PMP exam.
Right, so let's move on to the final strategy, guys, which is related but different concepts, okay. And this is especially a strategy which will be really applicable whilst you are solving agile type or hybrid type questions in your PMP exam, because mind it, at least 60 to 70% of your PMP exam questions will be based on agile or hybrid project management scenarios, okay. Now here's the important bit, that whilst you're preparing for the PMP exam, you need to have a very solid theoretical understanding of these concepts, which are related but very different, okay. So for example, MVP versus MMF, okay, which is the minimum viable product versus minimum marketable features. Epic versus feature, user story versus task, increment versus release, product backlog versus sprint backlog. So these are extremely critical for you to understand what is the difference, because if you make that mistake of thinking that all these are synonymous and all these are similar terms or similar sounding terms, you are making a blunder, guys, okay. And you will definitely be tricked into selecting the wrong answer choice. We'll practice a sample question as part of the exercise today, and moving forward, I would recommend that you go back to your Agile practice guide or to your lectures of Agile and study all of these concepts very clearly, so that you understand what are the difference between these, okay. However, at the end of this lecture, I have given some screenshots which you can keep for your reference, but let's try to solve this question first, okay. So let's do that. And you can pause the video and try to solve this question before we solve this together. Right, so let's get started. A software development team is delivering high quality features for a mobile application project. However, the CTO informs the project manager that the company is not getting sustainable return on investment. So there is definitely some commercial element involved on the team's current development efforts. How should the project manager address the problem? Option A, define a minimum viable product MVP with the team and prioritize relevant backlog. Possible, okay, so you can do like a prototyping or an MVP and you can prioritize relevant backlog. So option A is one of the sort of close answer choices. Let's look at option B, reduce the number of developers as necessary to guarantee a positive return of investment. This is incorrect. You can't like guarantee stuff right at the sort of product development stage, right? So hope none of you have selected this answer choice. Let's look at option C. Identify minimum marketable features and prioritize relevant backlog items. Again, exactly similar to option A, but it is sort of prioritizing MMF over MVP, and that is the indication that definitely these are different terminologies and they mean totally different things. Okay, they are not similar. Let's look at option D. Work with the Scrum Master to run a retrospective and perform project cancellation. This is random. Okay, so let's eliminate this. So classical case in point, you are stuck between two close answer choices. One talks about MVP, one talks about MMF, and as part of this strategy, these are related concepts, okay, but very different. Now here your theoretical knowledge will come into play, where you need to understand what is the key difference between MVP and MMF. Okay, now to summarize, the minimum viable product, or the MVP, is the smallest testable unit of functionality that can deliver value, right, and validate an idea or assumption. Okay, however, you need to keep in mind that MVPs are often used in early development to quickly test whether a specific feature works as intended, or at least does it meet the user needs. Okay, however, in contrast, minimum marketable feature, or MMF, is the smallest deliverable piece of functionality that provides tangible value to the customer or user and is ready for release to the market. Very, very important, because if the product, or at least your first version, is not ready for release to the market, then how will you generate return on investment? Okay, so this is where the commercial element as part of the scenario gets addressed. Okay, so MMF, or minimum marketable feature, it's not just about validating ideas, okay, but it is about delivering something which the organization can potentially monetize. Okay, and that is why it is very clear now that the correct answer to this question is option C, and option A, in the contrast, is an incorrect answer choice, because it is focusing on MVP and not on MMF. Okay. Now, before we close out the lecture, I have included a few slides here which you can pause and read through, and at least solidify your understanding with respect to these kind of concepts, which are similar sounding, but they are very different in terms of the concept, or sort of the feature, or let's say the topic in the agile or hybrid project management. So please don't make this mistake in terms of confusing one with the other. Okay, so please pause the video here. I have discussed the key differences between MVP and MMF. I have discussed what is epic versus feature. I have discussed what is user story versus task. I have discussed what is an increment versus what is a release, very different things. And I have also discussed what is a product backlog versus a sprint backlog. So please pause the video and go through this in your own interest of developing your overall knowledge for the PMP exam. Because if the PMP exam is trying to test you on strategy 3, which is related but different concepts, and if you are not aware of these concepts, okay, very, very clearly, and how they are different, you would invariably be confused between two close answer choices, and you will do a 50-50, do a toss, take a random guess, and there is a high probability you will end up selecting the wrong answer choice.
I hope you liked the video, guys. Please subscribe to this channel if you did, and do check out my 35 PDU masterclass course on Udemy if you are interested to learn more about this particular skill to ace your PMP exam. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next video.